things that we are getting emailed about right now are the responses from banks requesting financial statements because it might be the PPP, second loan forgiveness that clients haven't quite yet responded to. You know, one of the things that we see is a lot of times that stuff that's kind of hard gets put on the back burner, but yet we can help with that. And so being able to then also see that I've got some clients that are forwarding responses from the SBA who are requesting financial statements. And so how are we, getting prepped for that is part of what we are talking about. And I saw you shake your head, Anne. Are you not feeling those too?
I'm not seeing that. The only ones I've been seeing are the ones that say, please fill out this corporate resolution saying that, on behalf of the company, you really did want this loan, but I haven't seen the request for financial. So cool.
Yeah.
Is any response? Are people entering their PPP forgiveness through the new SBA portal? I wonder what the difference is, although it doesn't matter.
No, that's a great question. I think that from the SBA side, I've seen two of them, and what they was just, they had asked for PPP funds. They've already actually received forgiveness, but now it's one of them that's true. It's after the fact they're asking for financial statements. The other one was an EIDL loan that was requested, and it was over that $150,000 mark. And so we know that's a trigger that they can possibly, the SBA can possibly ask for financial statements if you accept more than 150,000. And so so that's the thing that I'm seeing. So are you not seeing any of the EIDL stuff at all? No?
I've got a couple of clients that have the EIDLs over 150,000, but other than that corporate resolution, I haven't seen anything come through on those, but that's okay. So you're giving me a heads up. Yay.
Yeah. And it's really, the financial statements that they're requesting are not complex. It's really similar to what the banks are asking for. So are you getting requests from the banks? Because we're seeing those too.
No, not yet.
So what I've seen from the banks is what the traditional request is for financial statements on annual loans that the banks request outside of COVID world. Just on an annual basis, sometimes the banks will come back and they'll say, hey, you've got an outstanding loan. We need to get financial statements. So the bank notices that I've got are very similar to that. So one of them also included personal financials because they had received a bank loan, and then the other one was just all business financial related.
And I've got that nice Excel sheet for personal financial statements.
Ooh, you do.
I'll find it and put it in the chat, but you carry on while I do that.
No, that would be a good one to go look at too, because
oh my God, yeah.
Even Kristen, I don't know, in your world, do you sometimes get those requests for those personal financial statements and filling out details that you might not necessarily have all the answers for?
Not yet, but I have one of my clients has his own food truck, and he's kind of just starting out and he's expanding at the same time. So I imagine that the requests will be coming, soon, because he's an individual. So he has a lot of his personal and business stuff tied together, as much as I keep trying to tell him that we need to keep everything separate.
Isn't that the truth? Which in your world, if you were to get one of these requests for the loans, it would make pulling out those pieces a little bit harder because you've got personal and business in there, which that's such a common thing that we see, where we have to, keep reminding, hey, really, there's a reason to pull out personal from your business because it gets tangled up in there. And the banks do sometimes want these, I see your frown, these financial statements. And are you struggling to find it?
No, I can't. Can I not put an Excel sheet in the chat?
No, but you could, hold on, let me see. Can we do attachments? I don't think that we can do attachments in here, but you could share screen. Do you want to do that?
I can, but it's like it's It's like, it's not very exciting to look at, but it's a
Yes, it
lovely thing to
is.
actually own.
Well, we can throw it into the
So
recording
I'll throw
link.
it in Slack and you can share it if somebody
Okay.
asks you for it. Cause if,
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and open it because I feel like it's
Okay. All right.
it's an area that a lot of people struggle. So yeah, I'll pull that up whenever you Slack it over.
Okay.
So the thing that is common that we see whenever we're looking at, okay, I see it there. Whenever we're looking at the financial statements is, how often do we have payments that have happened throughout the year to different loans, but maybe they didn't get posted to the actual liability. They got posted as an expense. That's one of those things that we go through and we look at to make sure that those loans are actually being, their payments are being applied against.
Yeah, I get it. When when the bank asks for those interim financial statements that are mid-year, you have to stop and do things that you normally only do at year end.
Mm-hmm. And so do you go back through, Ann, and try to catch up the interest on those, like to park which parts of those are interest, or you're just kind of like looking to make sure that just the loans are even applied?
I do what I would do at year end, which is put the interest in the interest and have a loan balance that matches the bank. And, it's like, I especially focus on the loans because that's the one number that the bank can check. If that number matches their records, I feel like it makes the whole financial statement kind of stand up a little more proudly for them.
If it matches their records. Yeah. I mean, good point. And the other thing that we look at whenever we're submitting financial statements is the bank balances, making sure that those are up to date. So it's common for people who don't use a professional for monthly services to be behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need just a little bit of help and catch up. I think that that's where some of us got a lot of calls during the last 18 months is people who were needing to get their financials in order to be able to even request the loans. And now there's this second wave that's happening right now where there's people who are saying, okay, I got my books caught up for the loan request. Now they need to have a second wave of this where they're wanting to catch up their bookkeeping in order to be able to supply the reports because they had those loan requests and got them. So, Ann, I'm going to pull up your Excel sheet here because that way we can look at it together. Yep. All right, so this is a really good template. I tried to make it large enough that everybody could see, but that's might be just slightly too large.
And it's like the bottom sections, like, so none of this is protected, so you can break it. And the bottom sections feed up into the top, like they're links. So like at the top where it says, detail of Schedule A, you fill out Schedule A and whoop, that number pops up there. But it matches the format that most banks give us just as a paper form on PDF. But it's nice to fill this out and save it. And it's really nice a year later when your client needs it again and all you have to do is update the Excel.
Oh, this is nice. Okay, so you're saying number of dependents, marriage status.
But of course, this is the personal financial statement. So, the value of this little S Corp that you've been doing books for years, who knows what the value is? You make it up. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You don't make it up. You use some reasonable basis to estimate what it would sell for.
Our best assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is perfect. So this is a really great example. So accounts payable. So even though this is the personal, but that's the same thing that they're asking for the business is what does the business owe? So how much debt has the business got
Yeah.
and possibly incurred because of the last 18 months?
I mean, this is essentially a balance sheet for a person. I mean, for our businesses, we just create our balance sheet in QuickBooks in lieu of, we don't do this. We just,
But this is nice to look at it in words that are other than just our financial statements in QuickBooks, because sometimes this makes more sense to our clients anyway. Oh, and then here's our retirement. So this, again, this is personal information, but being able to say, do they have any retirement plans that they want to put in here, the amount, because those have value that need to be parked on the personal financial statements.
yeah. I see it on when business line of credit, is so often guaranteed by that 100% owner. And so the bank will ask for those business financial statements and a personal financial statement. So
that's a good point. And a lot of our clients like those line of credits. They usually have lower interest rates than a credit card. Let me rephrase that. Not from a traditional loan, but from a credit card point of view. Like they're going to, yeah. And since they renew, you can just keep on asking for the same funds. Most of them renew automatically, but some of them you have to do this in order to be able to allow them to renew.
Yeah. The bank has to have their file up to date, which means they need the most recent tax return and they need some financial statements. And sometimes they need this too every year.
That makes me want to ask a question with tax returns this year. Do you feel like most of the people are finished with tax returns, or do you feel like it's still in limbo right now?
I seem to keep encountering people who have not yet filed. Of course,
more people than normal.
I'm done. All of my people have filed. Oh, wait, except for my 3 friends.
Kristen, what are you feeling right now? Do you think that clients that you've come in contact with have already submitted tax, or are they still in limbo too?
Business taxes are done. I had to extend one of the returns for personal, just because I didn't have all the information. So I just extended that one. Still have to complete it because she's a busy photographer and her summers are crazy. So it's a good thing it's extended to October, because I'm probably gonna be right, next month until I get them done, because she just doesn't have time to get me the information yet that I need. So
I think that's like a story across the board right now, that there's still some people out there, more people than normal, that haven't filed yet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a rough year.
I second.
Let's just completely forget 2021. I mean, they should just, not make anybody do taxes and all of this stuff.
So is that the feedback button that we want to hit?
Cancel it.
Yeah, I don't think that we have enough sway to make anything like that happen, but
Probably not.
Feedback button.
In our perfect world, this is what we want.
Right. Partnership. So being able to say the different businesses that are owned and the percentages of those. And so stocks. And do you see most stocks owned by the people, or do you sometimes see stocks owned by the business?
I almost never see investment owned by the business. I get it that's we're working with these really small businesses, and maybe it's more common, with larger businesses, but I hardly ever see that.
So,
and I advise against it. We don't mix up our risk and our stuff. And our businesses are the riskiest place we can put stuff. So we don't want to put it there. In general, rule of thumb. Oh, I
Yeah,
see a
so-
typo.
So do you feel like it's kind of like crossing the boundary of that wall that you put in place to have that LLC or to have that corporation? It's like if you put some of the risk inside there.
It's not the wall, because I mean, you could obviously open a broker account in the name of the business. I'm just saying that the place in somebody's world that's most likely to get sued is their business. And so, we take just for the same reason that we like our owners to own the office building and then the business to rent it from them. We want the wall in between the asset that's worth something and the business that's more liable to be sued. Not that I've ever had a client that had a huge lawsuit based on a business, some kind of business. Never. Like I know it happens, but I've never had it. I've never had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like like their driver ran over somebody or something. I just don't know.
Yeah,
So I
that's
have
funny
no
'cause
experience.
I haven't had a situation like that, but there was one that there was two that in our peer group that I was privy to. And one of them was actually a real estate investor who somebody had actually died or on the property. And so that was kind of an interesting that I didn't have to be, I wasn't directly part of. I was just being shared some of the story that was happening.
I prefer that none of my tenants die.
Great.
Nice, Anne.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Just want to put that out into the universe.
I heard you say it.
So contingent liabilities.
It's like, yeah, I mean, you have to do, if somebody's threatening a lawsuit, your lender needs you to disclose that to them. It's just a thing.
So any liens, even though this is the personal, it's like
Or,
people can have
I think
liens
that's probably
too.
would include like things maybe that you're the co-signer, but not, one of the parties on a loan or something. I don't know. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
filled that section out.
Yeah, but co-signer is like, that one's an interesting one. We don't have a whole lot of.
That does, which points out that this really helps us to remember the questions to ask when we're helping somebody with those personal financial statements. Of course, as CPAs, we have all these rules around what we do. And some of the times I get around the rules by having the client pull this up on their screen, and I coach them as they fill it out. And then I don't sign it. I'm not the preparer.
Well, and it's an educational moment too, like because really what I'm thinking of this as is a checklist. I mean, like that's essentially what this is. And a checklist with actual values that are being added to it. And so helping to understand what the banks are looking for. And it's like you said, this is a template that you've created that is really, really awesome, but this goes along with a lot of what the banks are asking for. So the bank may have their own version, but this is a really good place to say, these are the things that they're probably going to.
Of course, this was actually created from a PDF from a actual bank years ago. And when I've sent this to the bank in lieu of the form that they sent out, I've never had a bank say, no, I can't take it.
Oh, so you submit. Okay. So that's interesting.
I fill it out and then I save it as a PDF, so that it's a little harder to change the numbers. It's a little safer. So anyway, I fill it out, I save as a PDF, and then that's what I send the bank.
I hear you. So you're saying you come up here and take this Excel sheet and you say print. Yeah.
Well, I do file, or you can even do save as PDF, or you can print to PDF to make sure it all looks good. Yeah. Yeah. Look beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's And that way we've got our pages, and then they're not Excel sheets that you're saying, hey, they could be edited later.
Of course, we know it's so easy to edit PDFs now, but anyway,
Yeah, but I mean,
still,
this
it's
is,
still a little more stable.
well, it is, and also it's easier to read. So if you submit an Excel
Mhm.
sheet to the bank, they sometimes give us Excel sheets, so we know that they accept them, but the PDF is an easier file to flip through the pages.
Well, and you're not going to have a math error. And like I said, next year, all you have to do is make a couple of changes when voila, you're done.
Yeah, because it's so this might not be something everybody has, but being able to say if they have a money market account or they have stocks, those are probably not going to change much each year.
Right. Yeah.
And then you said, these are formulas right here.
Mhm.
So you type it in so that the math is being calculated for you. So after you go through all of these sections, up here is where you're saying those sections
Yeah,
end
if you
up.
look, it's a formula. Yeah, it's bringing that. Yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
You did a really great job on this. And I've used it before too.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, this will be great to share out. And the exact same thing that we're looking for here are the same things. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second and I'll pull up QuickBooks, because that's the exact same stuff that we're looking for that's also in QuickBooks. It just happens to look different because those fields are already being totaled. So the formulas aren't necessary inside of QuickBooks. I'm just going to pull up. Well, this is my demo, so you never know exactly what you're going to get in the QBO demo. But on your financial, personal financial worksheet, the stuff that they were asking was for the bank account balances. So that's the exact same thing that we've got for our businesses when pulling up financial statements. The accounts receivables, that's just a fancy word for saying over here, you had a section that was right
Yeah,
here.
for notes receivable. If you have
Yeah.
anybody owes you money.
So this is the personal version of that. But if we went and looked at the QuickBooks version of that, that's this right here. And that's not a bad number to be expecting.
It depends on, good or bad is relative. How many days of receivables does that represent? I don't know. Maybe he
scroll
has a
down
collections problem. Poor Mr. Demo.
Poor Mr. Demo. Look, he only has $600 in bills that are due.
Okay.
But look at that. So, if we were to look at this, we might say he's not in bad shape. But we would come back over here and we go, what are uncategorized assets?
Mhm.
So this would be an area that we would need to dive into to clean up before we sent financials to the bank. Because the banks are going to say, well, what is it? It's uncategorized. We've got to name it something. Is it inventory? Is it a building? Is it a car? And then all of our credit cards.
Mhm.
Those are areas that we look at whenever we're sending over financial statements, because we want to make sure that we don't see weird stuff like negative balances. So they've paid more to the credit card than what we show expenses for, because then we know if that's true, we're probably wrong on our profit and loss because we're missing expenses.
Mhm.
So these are all areas that we go over. Payroll is that area current. This client doesn't appear to have sales tax, but we've got loans.
Mhm.
And this is that area where we were talking about. If you've got a loan, then you want to make sure that all of the payments that you're making to them are recorded in the bookkeeping correctly. And that's a common thing that I see that's often missing. let's see. Yeah, and then this whole equity section. Sometimes I do just that whenever I'm sending it over to the bank. I just collapse that equity section because a lot of times some of that's just personal stuff. And then we look for the exact same thing. So if we say, all right, balance sheet looks good, then we'll go ahead and pull our profit and loss, because these are the two statements that most often the bank are asking for. They're not asking for more than these two things. But right there, that would catch our attention. So what is this? Again, it's uncategorized, so we need some detail. It's probably one of these two. And sale of product income, this would probably get my attention, because I'd say, well, if we know they don't have sales tax, what products did they sell? Was this accidentally categorized wrong and it's really services?
So do we say out loud that when they're little tiny numbers like that, we find a rug to sweep them under?
Well, I think that what we end up doing is actually going over to our chart of accounts and saying, do we have accounts that are active that we need to make inactive, so that way accidentally errors don't happen? Because the income is not actually product based in a service based business. So we would come over here and I would go through the income accounts to merge some of these. There's a lot here.
And where we might have some sloppy mapping in our items. If we found out that $10 came from an invoice, then we'd go fix the item.
Yep. And so over in our products and services, we'd go over into this area and we would look to see, like you said, is it all mapped correctly? So these are all cleanup things whenever we're going through the books that we look at. And there's a really cool feature over here that I do. So I come over here and in my columns, add the income and the expense accounts. So here I can actually sort by. So income accounts, I can go, okay, does this actually make sense? Some of this stuff, is that correct? Or is it mapped strange? So we would want to make sure that our services that are income related are mapped to an income account correctly. And if it's an expense account, that it's mapped correctly. So we would go find errors here that, like you said, would feed into unexpected accounts. And one of the other things I come down to is once we look at the balance sheet and we're happy with it, we've looked at our income, then I come through the expenses, and here's another one right there that I would point out. Like, that's a big number to say that it's uncategorized. And what I typically see is that somebody's entering bank feeds and just accepting them without taking the time to sort them out. So those are usually pretty easy to correct. Because you can open up that number and go, oh, okay, I can see that it's really, I have no idea what we're getting ready to find. Oh, look, utilities. Yeah. So those would be easy to then go and fix. And we've got a couple of IRS payments. So those are probably going to be payroll related. So that was, it's kind of a nice walk through some of the checklists of the things that we're looking for, what the banks are looking for. And a lot of times the banks aren't asking for it to be perfect either. This isn't tax time, but we do want to have it as close to correct as possible. But
I mean, as a CPA, I know I've got to do the cover letter and the compilation letter, and I've got to do some things. But as a bookkeeping firm, Liz, what do you hear from your peers? What does the bookkeeper doesn't have to add a compilation letter, right? The bookkeeper doesn't have to actually sign off on those financials. What do you?
We're not required to have the same stipulations that you've got. So there's some differences there that we don't have to do some of those extra steps, that it's okay to pull some of these reports. And, you know, sometimes we call them management reports instead of actually labeling them financial statements, because really they're making management decisions off of these reports. And that seems to be enough to be able to make management decisions or lending decisions. The thing is we just don't want to have these big, big glaring errors that once, in my experience, once the bank starts not trusting the financials, that's whenever you start getting not just one question, 10 questions. So if they see something that's not correct, I mean, like that's part of the true value in submitting something that makes sense the first time, is once they start mistrusting the financial statements, then they go, okay, let's have documentation or proof or more.
Yeah. And I always double check that my they're asking me for these interim financial statements a lot of times, like right now, I might give them through the end of June and they'd be satisfied. But I always I want to make sure that balance sheet ties to the tax return. I assume that we're sending them tax basis financials, because it's really, if those two things match for the bank, that makes it easier for them.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one more thing that they can look to say, I trust these numbers.
Yes.
Because the banks don't want to spend a lot of time digging through this. They've got lots of customers and they really, most of the time they want to move those loans along. So each time that they hit a roadblock, it actually slows down the banks and it slows down us and, the business owner.
So as the bookkeeper, when the tax accountant finishes that tax return, I want to see a copy. I want to make sure that tax accountant has put good numbers on that balance sheet on the tax return, so that 6 months later, I'm not struggling because I've got a tax balance sheet that's crap.
So another way, like my brain is turning that, is to say, it's really common for us to ask for a tax return. If we're not the people who have done it, then we want a tax return. So that way we can make sure those end of year adjustments have been made to the bookkeeping. So that way it all matches. So it's really, really common for us we don't do tax, to request that tax return to be able to make sure that everything matches. And there's some of our tax accountants out there that we know that don't love QuickBooks. And so sometimes all they want is to be sent reports, which means that they're not ever going to touch QuickBooks, the bookkeeping. And so it's our job to then go through and update to make sure the numbers tie in. And you know what's crazy about all that? We're geeks and we love that part. Yeah, I always tell my clients, it's like, no, really, all those details that you don't want to look at, send them over. We love those.
Do you find it easy to get that?
Sometimes, and sometimes I feel like some business owners really struggle with that themselves. They don't have a comfort level with it. So that means that sometimes they struggle with being comfortable in sending that out to the world, which, that would be something that includes us.
Well, yeah, and I sometimes you ask the tax accountant for stuff and you get crickets.
Well, not all tax accountants are equal.
I know.
So, Kristen, did I hear you say you do tax?
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with tax returns. It's kind of like cleaning. Once you get started and you get into that groove, then it's like, I love tax returns. But the whole time leading up to tax returns, it's like, oh, I'm really dreading doing these tax returns. But then it's like I said, you get into it and then it's just like you find that groove and it's your happy place.
So which part do you like better? Do you like the routine monthly piece, or do I actually hear you saying that you like the tax best? Did I hear
No,
that?
it's funny because my master's degree is a concentration in tax. Looking back on why I did that, I have no idea, because tax is not ever something I wanted to specialize in. But I do very much enjoy, I don't mind the monthly part of it, but like the reconciling, making sure everything matches. Why is this that way? Why is that that way? That's the piece that really kind of pulls me in. So I like the problem solving piece of accounting.
So I'm going to ask a question because I think that we all might struggle with this piece. So the reason that I'm assuming that you have a hard time with some of the balances tying in is because of the document requests having access. Is that part of it? Getting the stuff that you need in order to be able to do your job? Yeah, I think we all struggle in that area, is that, it's a true struggle that I feel like we especially have here in the US with our banks that don't all have the view only user to be able to say, give us access. We don't want to touch anything. So we don't necessarily want our clients accesses to the banks and the loans, but it's really hard to have those users that not every single bank or credit card has created.
Why doesn't every bank have the ability to view the images of the deposited items?
Oh, or the check images. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm 100%.
I know
with
they
you.
have it. Why isn't it on the database, on the online banking?
Yeah.
That's definitely frustrating,
Mhm.
especially
Yeah.
when nobody takes copies of checks that they're depositing or puts enough information in, or whatever the case may be. It's like, I always tell people, you can never have too much information in the accounting world.
Yeah. I know, we love those details. I mean, like, we geek out on the details. I get excited whenever I see, we have one person who is sending us directly just the image. They're like in the car, they're making the deposit, and they snap a picture of the deposit, and we get excited about that.
Mhm.
I mean, as silly as that sounds, like, that's a yay moment, because we don't have to zen and try to figure it out. We don't have to try and guess. We don't have to dig around for all of the open invoices that we think that payment belongs to. It just makes our life so much easier. So we love those details. We get excited. And I just saw your cat.
Oh
pass
yeah,
by.
she's being a menace today. Look at
Yeah, look at her. She's so cute.
like
Anne's cat likes to eat rubber bands.
yeah. My documents look like this. I have to put things away that I don't want chewed. Like, if the piece of paper is owned by the client, it has to be put away. But she's really good company.
Yeah, she has does she still have a little basket that's on your desk?
Yeah.
Yeah, that she curls up in.
She's
She's a really good cat.
She digs
She's
the
just
boxes,
ornery.
of course, because she's
Yeah.
a cat.
Yeah, I have too many boxes right now. I feel like somebody needs to go into the business of collecting all of the Walmart and Amazon boxes from everybody. There has to be some value to that. I hate throwing them in the trash. I hate that. I feel so irresponsible, and it's not greedy to take those boxes and throw them in the trash. I ordered some folders from Walmart, just school folders from Walmart, and they came in a giant box, and I was like, oh, by themselves, 2 of them, 2. Yeah, I'm like, I now have this box that I'm responsible for, and I feel guilty for wanting to throw it away. Yep, trying to be responsible, do my part. Well, I like these conversations. I think they're fun. So I'm glad that everyone joined for this one where we're talking about our financial statements that are going out to the banks and into the world. Any thoughts? Last minute thoughts to end on? No. How about we just
except,
like,
oh,
go ahead.
right now we've got all these different things going on. Like, we want to be able to, when you look at those financial statements, we want to make sure that they back up your, maybe your PPP qualifying income, your ERC qualifying income. So even though you're sending something out into the world for one purpose, you want to make sure that the information that you're publishing is consistent with maybe these other purposes that the client has going on. It's gotten complicated.
Yeah.
You can't tell two stories.
No, which is another reason why it's helpful to have help to do it, because it's not just cut and dry pull reports. There's a story there. There's a story there, and we like those stories. We like being part of them. The more that we know, the more that we can help. Well, I'm going to say this was a great, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. So I will, we'll just close it off now by saying bye. And we'll jump on next time and have another powwow.
Thanks, Liz.
All right. Bye, everyone.